I recently outlined a strategy and process that I used with one of my next level nonprofit members to help her break through her first $1 million year in a way that didn't actually perpetuate the burnout that she and her team were experiencing. So, smoother, faster, simpler, and more direct path from 750, where she started, to 1 million. And I want to walk through that here because it's a similar set of challenges that a lot of folks that come into my program have, and that a lot of leaders who are bumping up against that first million experience. And so I thought that walking through what we actually did and what we focused on may be helpful as you are thinking through your own growth. So when the member came into the program, she had some specific goals. She had been sort of bumping up against bouncing around $750,000 for like 2 or 3 years, and it was a plateau. And she really wanted to get to 1 million in annual revenue because that was tied to very specific impact goals that she had. She wanted to build the organizational capacity to support and sustain national expansion beyond the state that she was in and beyond actually the city that she was in. And she knew that she needed to get to $1 million to do that. She wanted to free up her time to focus on the kinds of activities that she knew would scale the organization: relational fundraising, strategic partnerships. She was feeling frustrated that she didn't have time for that kind of work because she was so in the weeds. And she wanted a clear plan for growth. She felt like she was stuck at this plateau. She'd been trying all the things she knew. She didn't know what she didn't know. Now, she came with certain assets, which were really, really helpful. She had a really, really great program model with strong outcomes that she could point to and a reputation that we could build on. She had a really well-established brand. And that was something that she had cultivated with her institutional funders, and she had some corporate partners also. She was really driven and really focused on her vision for impact. And so that sort of why was really central for her. She had a really central why. And she had existing relationships with program partners and funders that we could showcase. So the program was really strong. The impact and the outcomes were really strong. And the sort of desire to leverage that was really strong. Now, she also had some challenges, and these are the ones that I think are really similar to organizations that are at this growth stage. Her revenue had plateaued and had been there for about 2 or 3 years. And she, like I said, had been trying all the things she knew. They weren't working. So she didn't see the pathway to $1 million. She didn't see how she could get past 750. She was also really overwhelmed by the day to day, by operational tasks and administrative tasks. And so she couldn't find the time in her calendar, literally couldn't find the hours to focus on the kinds of things that she knew would actually fuel her growth: fundraising, strategy, et cetera. She didn't really know what to focus on, what her organizational priorities should be. Everything felt like it was of equal importance and weight. And so cutting out the noise and knowing what to let go of and where to lean in was really tough because, in part, she was in the weeds. And finally, her team, she had people in place. She had sort of enough people on the team, but their roles and responsibilities were murky. Right. And so there was a lot of overlap. There were balls being dropped, and she didn't really feel like she could step out of the direct management of everyone because she didn't have a leadership team that could actually sort of hold all of their work. There were a lot of bottlenecks and inefficiencies in information flow. So here's what we did. And it was really sort of a focused process. We did this over the course of 12 months. She actually joined the program for 6 months and then wound up staying for the next 2 cycles, actually. But this was really over 10 to 12 months together. So the first thing we did was we conducted an audit of her team. We paid a lot of attention to her leadership team. What was going wrong? Where were the bottlenecks? And how could we clarify the roles? We did a lot of role clarification, role mapping, so that the work that needed to be done was tied to specific roles and not people. And we differentiated workflows so that it became really clear who is responsible for what does ownership and accountability look like, and what are the goals and responsibilities within each workflow. Then we actually worked to refine and strengthen the strategic plan. So she had a strategic plan, but it felt unusable. right? It had some goals, it had some strategies. What we actually did was we looked and we said, okay, what does impact actually look like 5 years from now? And then let's reverse engineer the goals that we can let go of, the goals that we need to lean into, and what the key results or OKRs for each of those goals look like on the ground year to year. This really helped with streamlining priorities because we were also strengthening the team and what leadership team ownership looked like. She was able to bring her leadership team into this conversation and say, if this is where we want to be in 3 years and in 5 years, this is what you have to own in year 1, in year 2, and year 3. So that relationship between the strategic direction and the month to month and week to week and day to day work got much clearer. Third, we developed for her a delegation strategy. So really working and coaching the leader on how to understand what to let go, how to let go. Part of freeing her up to focus on high leverage activities like partnerships and fundraising, part of that was about having a stronger team. And part of that was also about her getting better at knowing when and how to delegate. So we focused a lot on her own leadership skills in that space. We also clarified the differentiation and unique value proposition of the organization. They were doing a lot of things. Their program work was great, but some of what had sort of grown over the first 7 or 8 years of the organization was extraneous. It was more than they needed to be doing. And so they were actually spending money and resources on parts of their programs that weren't actually directly tied to impact. And so once we got really clear about what was critical to the impact, we could then say, this is what makes you guys really amazing and unique. And so as you are crafting partnerships, as you are talking to donors and funders, this is how you can highlight what makes investing in you a particularly exciting opportunity, right? That's the differentiation. They weren't just doing youth programs. There was something special and unique about their youth programs. And being able to talk like that made the fundraising a lot easier and made the growth, especially as she thought about national partnerships and expansion, made that a lot easier. Finally, we focused on internal infrastructure. We built processes and support systems, workflows, SOPs, automations, really getting to the point where some of the work that had been manual could stop being manual, right? We could automate that and take the work not just off her plate, but off of everybody's plate. And then media opportunities, because the program impact was there, because the outcomes were there, and because the brand was there, how could we leverage that to increase the visibility and credibility and trust of the organization? And actually led to their very first New York Times placement, which was a game changer in terms of being noticed by funders, especially outside of their local community. So the results were really exciting. And like I said, we started to see these results within the first 6 months, and all of these were by the first year. So within that first year, she went from 750 to 1.5 million in income, not just sort of expense. So doubled her budget. We rebuilt the leadership team. And by the time we got to the end of that year, she had a leadership team that could actually own their work. And so her relationship to management, her relationship to her calendar felt more spacious, felt more high leverage. She had a really clear strategic focus, and she could share that focus with clarity with potential funders and partners and donors. And we found, as we saw in the revenue, that that made fundraising and partnership expansion much easier. Because she was able to spend her time on high leverage work and get out of the weeds, she was able to push for national recognition far sooner than she had anticipated. When she came into the program, she was thinking over the next 5 years, we want to be sort of nationally recognized and start to think about national expansion. And she found that that was possible in the first year because we made these other changes. Now, there are a few key takeaways that I want to share. First, the alignment of your team really matters. Having the right roles and building a strong leadership team is critical to support real growth, especially as you're talking about getting to and sustaining 7 figures. Clarity drives results. Having a strategic plan is level 1. Having a strategic plan that is clear, that is usable as an internal planning tool and guiding tools, that is translated into OKRs and work plans, That's level 2 and 3, right? That's what you actually want. Third, you have to leverage high impact activities if you want to grow. You have to get good at delegating the operational in the weeds tasks. You have to find the right people on your team to delegate those to. And your calendar as the leader has to be filled with activities that drive outsized growth, thought leadership, fundraising that is relational, partnership, and network expansion. We also learned that visibility is actually really important. Being the best kept secret isn't a virtue, right? If you're doing good work, you want people to see it. And so thinking about what that looks like and how you can increase your visibility to the people that count, to your stakeholders, to your constituents, to potential board members, and to potential supporters. Those are your audiences. How can you make that part of your work and growth plan? And then finally, and this is a really big one, you have to invest in your growth. It is not going to happen accidentally. So really investing in systems, in coaching, in professional development for your team, that is how you build the bones of a strong organization that can actually hit your revenue and impact targets as you grow. So I hope that case study was really helpful. If you would like to get the sort of Google Doc of this, I'm happy to share. Just add the comment below, send it to me, and I will send it to you. And if this kind of work, if this kind of support and partnership is something that you think your organization would benefit from, click the link below and grab your next level game plan. And let's talk about how you can join my coaching programs and get my support from me and my team.